I remember the long drive across the Mojave, when Route 91 felt endless under the burning sun, dust rising behind every passing car. It was quiet out there, the kind of silence you could feel in your chest. And then, far ahead, Las Vegas appeared like a mirage of light in the dark. If you enjoy memories like this, consider subscribing to MemoryLens US. Like and share. Find a quiet place, follow the screen, and let these old images carry you back to a time that never truly fades. Back then, after the war, people were not just looking for a place to go. They were searching for something to feel. Las Vegas became that feeling. Rising out of the harsh Mojave, it offered something almost unbelievable. A promise of comfort in a place that had none. I still remember how people talked about it, as if it were a dream you could actually step into. One of the first things that defined that dream was the swimming pool. It may sound simple now, but in those days, a pool meant you had made it. In Las Vegas, they took that idea and turned it into something bigger. Pools were not hidden behind fences. They were placed right where travelers could see them from the road, shimmering under the sun, inviting you in without a word. Soon, the hotels began trying to outdo each other. Each new pool was larger, brighter, more imaginative than the last. People would walk through these spaces in awe, not just because of the water, but because of what it represented. It was a new kind of life, one that felt far removed from the struggles many had known before. What I remember most is the contrast. Just beyond those pools was the same dry desert, unchanged and unforgiving. But inside, there was laughter, music, and the quiet belief that for a moment everything could be different. When the sun finally slipped behind the desert, Las Vegas became something else entirely. I can still remember that first moment, when the sky turned dark and the lights came alive all at once. It was not like any other city. There were no tall buildings to define the skyline. Instead, it was the signs, glowing, flickering, reaching upward as if they were trying to outshine the stars themselves. Each casino wanted to be seen first. If one sign was tall, the next had to be taller. If one glowed bright, the next had to burn even brighter. The Stardust, the Dunes, the Aladdin, their names were not just written in lights. They were performed. Colors moved, shapes shimmered, and everything felt alive in a way that is hard to describe now. People did not just walk the strip. They stood and stared. I remember watching families pause in silence, faces lit by reds and golds and blues, as if they had stepped into another world. There was a kind of wonder in the air, a feeling that anything could happen under those lights. Looking back, it was never really about the buildings. It was about what those signs made you feel. Las Vegas was not a city you simply visited. It was a city you saw, a city you felt, and for a moment, a city you believed in. What stays with me most are not the lights or the buildings, but the people who filled those spaces. Las Vegas in those years was alive with quiet stories, the kind you only notice if you take a moment to look past the surface. Visitors came chasing excitement, hoping for a little luck, maybe a small win they could carry home and talk about for years. You could see it in their faces as they stepped onto the casino floor, a mix of hope and wonder. But behind that excitement were the people who made it all possible. Dealers standing for hours, steady and focused, reading every movement across the table. Waitresses moving through the noise and smoke with a kind of grace, balancing trays, offering a smile even after a long shift. Many of them had come from somewhere else, drawn by the same promise that brought everyone to Las Vegas, the chance to build a life, to start again. Daily life was not always glamorous. Long hours, modest pay, and the constant rhythm of a city that never really rested. Yet there was a sense of pride in it, a feeling that they were part of something bigger than themselves. Small dreams lived in those moments, saving enough for a home, supporting a family, finding stability in a place built on chance. Looking back now, it becomes clear that Las Vegas was never just about the games or the shows. It was about the people who believed in it, who gave their time and their energy to keep it alive. Their stories are the ones that still linger, long after the lights have dimmed. There was a time when Las Vegas did not just shine, it swung. If you were there, or even if you only heard the stories later, you know exactly what I mean. The Copa Room at the Sands became the heart of it all, a place where the night felt alive in a way that is hard to describe today. Frank Sinatra stood at the center, confident and sharp, his voice carrying through the room with a kind of presence that made everything else fade. Dean Martin brought a relaxed charm, easy and familiar, like someone you had known your whole life. And Sammy Davis Jr., with his incredible talent, could hold the entire room without saying a word. Together, they created something that felt natural, but it was anything but ordinary. People did not just come for a show, they came to feel part of something. The laughter, the music, the quiet conversations at the tables, it all blended into a moment that felt larger than life. There was a sense of cool that defined that era. Not forced, not rehearsed, just real. Looking back now, it is clear that those nights helped shape what Las Vegas would become. It was no longer just a place to gamble. It had become the entertainment capital, a city where talent, style, and atmosphere came together in a way that still echoes through time. But not everything in those years was as bright as it seemed. For all the music and laughter, there was another side to Las Vegas that many people did not see, or chose not to talk about. It is something that deserves to be remembered with honesty. In those days, the city was still divided by race. Black performers could stand under the spotlight, their names shining across the marquees, drawing full crowds night after night. Yet when the show ended, they were not allowed to walk through the same front doors as their audience. Sammy Davis Jr., one of the most talented entertainers of that era, often had to leave through the back and find a place to stay across the tracks. That part of town was known as the West Side. The streets were unpaved in many areas, the living conditions far removed from the glamour just a short distance away. It is hard to imagine now, knowing how much those performers gave to the city and how much they helped define its identity. There was a moment of hope with the opening of the Moulin Rouge in 1955, the first integrated hotel in Las Vegas. For a brief time, it offered something different, a place where people could gather without those barriers. But it did not last long. Change came slowly, and not without pressure. By 1960, the push for civil rights reached Las Vegas, leading to an agreement that finally began to open the Strip to everyone. Looking back, it reminds us that even in a place built on dreams, the reality was often more complicated, shaped by both progress and pain. There was a feeling back then that Las Vegas was wide open, a place where anything could happen, and in many ways, that was true, but not all of it was visible. Some of the most important decisions were made far from the casino floor, in quiet rooms where deals were sealed with a handshake and a look that said more than words ever could. In the 1960s, several organized crime groups had a strong influence over the city. They helped finance and operate major casinos, shaping what visitors experienced without ever stepping into the spotlight themselves. To most people, it was just another exciting night out. But behind the scenes, there was a different kind of system at work. One of the practices that later became widely known was skimming. Money was quietly taken from casino profits before it was officially counted. It was not something guests could see, but it was happening in places like the Stardust, one of the largest and most talked about casinos of its time. These operations were often tied to funding that came through connections such as the Teamsters Pension Fund, linking the city to networks far beyond the desert. I remember how people would sometimes speak about it in hushed tones, not with fear exactly, but with a kind of understanding that this was part of what kept the city running. Las Vegas offered excitement and escape, but it also carried an edge, a sense that beneath the glamour, there were forces that played by their own rules. Then, almost quietly, everything began to change. In 1966, Howard Hughes arrived in Las Vegas, not with a grand entrance, but in a way that matched the man himself, private and distant. He checked into the Desert Inn, intending to stay for a short time. But when he was asked to leave after his reservation ended, something unexpected happened. He decided to buy the entire hotel. That moment may not have seemed important to most people at the time, but looking back, it marked a turning point. Hughes was not part of the old system. He came from a different world, one of aviation, industry, and corporate structure. And once he began, he did not stop. Over the next few years, he quietly purchased several major properties along the Strip. For those who had watched Las Vegas grow through its earlier years, this shift felt different. The city was no longer just a place shaped by individual personalities and hidden influences. It was beginning to move towards something more structured, more controlled, and in many ways, more legitimate. I remember how people spoke about it, not with excitement, but with curiosity. It felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The Las Vegas they had known was still there, but it was changing, step by step, into something new. Looking back at it all, I cannot help but feel a quiet sadness. So many of those old casinos are gone now, brought down to make room for something newer. The neon that once filled the night has faded, and the city feels different, even if it still shines. To me, Las Vegas is not quite what it used to be. How does it feel to you, seeing these memories? I would really like to hear your thoughts, so please share them below. This video is based on real historical sources, with no intent to divide, only to remember. If this story meant something to you, please subscribe to MemoryLens US, like, and share. I will see you in the next video.